Adrien had hired Daniel and Sophia for a simple mission, to transport a cargo across the system. He had experience, they had youth, everything should have been routine. But they had an accident, and now they were stranded on an unknown planet.
I've created a system for RimWorld characters to converse with each other and, in addition, to have a narrator who tells the story of what happens as if it were a tale. But as I will mention later, this is just the beginning of something bigger. I started from a mod called Rim GPT, made by Brains, which already had an integrated narrator. The problem was that it addressed the player too much, saying things like, "You need to build more beds," or "You're terrible at this." My idea was the exact opposite. Instead of giving orders, the narrator should tell the story in a literary tone, describing the events as an engaging plot.
A vast desert stretched before them. The air was breathable, but the heat bit at their skin. Food was scarce, they had to act fast. But while Daniel and Sophia were thinking about how to survive, Adrien seemed to have another priority.
The mod already gathered a lot of in-game data, but the process it followed was opaque. It wasn't easy to see what was happening. So I implemented a log window where events are classified into different categories: game events, pending dialogues, and ChatGPT requests. This way, I can see in real time what information is being sent, what is received, and how everything is organized, without making it more difficult than coughing with diarrhea.
We need to find food, Adrien.
There are supplies in the cargo. The important thing is to find the remains of the ship.
Other changes I made included the original mod forcing ChatGPT to generate historical summaries, but that system lost too much context and ended up hindering the quality of the responses. I decided to revert it so that it would send the last 30 messages instead.
Days later, they managed to locate the remains of the cargo compartment. There was no water, no food, only a stash of small metallic packages containing a bluish substance. Daniel and Sophia exchanged silent glances.
The mod already collected a lot of in-game information, but I had to modify quite a few things. For example, conversations are now generated using the game's own text. So if the game says, "Mal joked about food with Melissa," ChatGPT would say something like, "Mal, what did one green grape say to a purple grape? Breathe, breathe. Melissa, you have less humor than a one-armed mime."
Days passed. Daniel and Sophia built a shelter. They found underground water. They planted seeds. Meanwhile, Adrien sank deeper and deeper into his obsession. He barely spoke. He barely ate. He only consumed that substance.
Besides ChatGPT, I experimented with DeepSeek's distilled models to see if they could handle dialogues efficiently. Despite being reasoning models that took forever, their responses weren't as good as our Llama 70B, which I might use in the future, but for now, I'll stick with GPT.
Adrien is rotting alive.
And if we don't do something, he'll drag us down with him.
Rim GPT originally used Azure for text-to-speech conversion, but I decided to add Elevenlabs, Google, and Amazon. Elevenlabs sounds pretty good. Google and Amazon sound like a cat scratching a chalkboard. I also tested fish speech as a local alternative, but it took so long to generate the audio that by the time the colonist was supposed to speak, the game was already over.
They waited for him to fall asleep. They took the packages and threw them into the fire. The flames turned bluish. A chemical stench filled the air. They stared at the fire in silence.
I wanted not just a global narrator, but for each colonist to have their own voice. So, I made it possible to assign a different narrator to each character, with their own voice and tone. For example, Melissa can speak with the voice of an elderly woman, while Mal can use a teenage tone so it doesn't sound off. In RimWorld, when characters talk, they basically just pass by each other for a second, and in that second, they're supposed to have had a conversation. I wish all my arguments worked like that. So, to make it more realistic, I added a configurable delay of a few seconds when they speak to each other. A couple of weeks ago, I put RimWorld in 3D. Last week, I made a program to upload videos in bulk. And this week, I got the characters to talk. If I were you, I'd subscribe.
At dawn, Adrien stumbled out of the shelter. His bloodshot eyes scanned the camp. He saw the ashes. His breathing quickened. He grabbed the shotgun and went insane.
All of this is part of a larger project called RimAI, whose goal is to replicate the Generative Agents paper within the RimWorld universe. This paper describes the creation of a village inhabited by different AI agents, who not only interact with each other, but also have their own memories, thoughts, and goals. The most interesting part of the original experiment was how emergent social behaviors naturally arose, from the spontaneous organization of a Valentine's Day party to the democratic election of a mayor. This is just the first chapter of a series where we'll explore how to bring this incredible experience into the world of RimWorld, so stay tuned for more.
Subscribe!